second was absolutely the task management portion. So in the end, we went with Maya. I think it was partially because of our culture and what we were looking for. The 3 products out there, Maya Learning was actually developed by a parent, which is kind of cool in the way their story plays out. And I think you can see that. I mean, they have a stellar parent platform, ease of access, and it makes a lot of sense. C-Alpha was designed by counselors, so you can kind of see that from that user. And SCORE, I remember back in 2015, I think it was, they developed a website for students. So all 3 have their angle of where they originated, and I think you can see that. The piece that really convinced us with Maya was I really loved their academic planner. So you can plan out their course sequence. And as somebody who does course registration and helping kids get into that junior and senior year, into those courses in their junior and senior year, that became a really useful tool for managing what's next for them as they chart out that 4-year path.
Cool. I will jump in there. Yeah, it's interesting that you say SCORE started with the student experience. That is where we started, is looking at, I wanted to see what, one of the things that we realized with our previous platform was that our students weren't using it, and or they were only using it when I kind of put a thumb on their head and made them use it for certain tasks. And I found myself like ghosting in, which I don't even think is a thing you can do anymore, as them to do tasks because they weren't doing the tasks. So I wanted a really robust student experience, and one that would inspire them to use the platform. And so that's where we started with SCORE, and that was what drew me to them. And then the other things that I was really interested in making sure were robust were the teacher experience. I wanted the teacher experience to be easy. At my school, again, under my previous platform, part of the issue is that a lot of the tasks that one does with college counseling, you do them once a year, right? And then you don't do them again until the next year at that time. And so for our teachers who would log in October and try to, figure out how to upload recommendations and whatever, and then by the next October, they would have forgotten about it, or they would have changed the mechanism anyway, even if they remembered it was a whole new, a new experience. So I really wanted an easy teacher experience, and SCORE is so easy for the teachers. And then I also really was looking, of course, for my experience as a counselor, I wanted to be able to send documents easily, and I wanted to be able to do things the way that I wanted to do them. And one of the things that I really liked when I was looking at SCORE was that there always seemed to be more than one way of doing something. So, teacher recommendations were a great example. Teachers can choose whether they type into a box or whether they attach a document. They can also choose, I can do it for them if I want to. I can create new people. I can have an outside recommender send me an email and I can create it for them and just have it sent. It just felt very flexible. So that was really important to me. And then of course, customer service. One of the things for me that's been really gratifying about SCORE is that when I pick up the phone or send an email, like I know who's on the other end and who's going to get back to me. And it's really great to be able to know people by name, feel that they know me, and that it's just very easy. And so I am one of those people who forgets how to do stuff from year to year. So when I go to do some task in October I haven't done for a year, sometimes I don't remember how to do it. And then I call and they're like, oh, let's walk you through that again. And I'm like, oh, thank you. It's just so easy. Like they always get back to me so quickly. So I felt like the customer service was a really important factor. So those were the things I was considering.
I'll echo a lot of the same sentiments as my colleagues. First and foremost, customer service for us was extremely important. So like Stacy and Kelly have both said, we wanted to make sure that we could pick up the phone and get a hold of someone very easily who could answer any questions or concerns that we might have quickly and frame it in a way that was easy for us to work through. So we certainly found that in C-Alpha. In terms of making the decision, we did spend a few years shopping, knowing that the contract with Naviance would be expiring. We used the NACAC conference as a platform to go around the exhibitor hall and check in with the different companies. We definitely had individual meetings and demos and looked at a variety of different options. We do have, as I mentioned, that counseling class. So we wanted to make sure, is my screen okay? I saw the connection stability, all good?
We can hear you. You froze a little bit, but we can hear you fine.
Okay, yeah. Audio's all good. All right. So having that counseling class, we wanted to make sure that we could store data around a junior questionnaire, help students with their resume building. Kelly mentioned task manager. We wanted to make sure that students could track their tasks on this platform. List building, very important. We wanted to make sure that we had a system in place that students could actively build lists. CALFO has a really nice feature that you can create both a long list, narrow it down to a short list, and then convert it over to an applying list. Parchment sending, document sending was extremely important to us. That Common App integration, we wanted to make sure that there would be no hiccups in terms of sending student application materials, transcripts and whatnot, letters of recommendation to colleges. We wanted to make sure teachers had that high usability and ease of uploading their letters of recommendation. Of course, students and parents, we wanted to make sure that they had a system that they felt comfortable with and could navigate seamlessly. So those are the main factors for us. Cost, again, we were looking at, but there is grant funding available that would help subsidize that. So, while important, that was just one of many factors that we were considering and how we ultimately chose CALFO. So moving on.
Just a note on the pricing, I think it's just probably worth mentioning at this point is I believe all of the platforms, and I'm sure they have different specials, but most of them are charging based upon the size of your senior class. So just something worth investigating, just to see what that price tag looks like. And I do know a couple of them have been saying, if you're doubling up, a Naviance and Score, CALFO, or, Maya, there are ways, and they're ready to work with you. I think that's just reminiscent of these newer companies. They want to work with you, and just like the customer service.
Before we transition to the next topic, I see a question in the chat from Angela. And to our participants, please feel free to use the chat or raise your hand to ask a question. But in terms of Chapter 339 artifacts and basically storing student information, really artifacts, tasks that students can complete around college and career readiness. So Kelly and Stacy, for Maya and Score, Chapter 339, I know your schools, that's not a requirement. We're all coming from those private school environments. But in terms of students logging and demonstrating, their learning for college and career readiness, have you utilized Maya and Score in that way at all?
Kelly, do you want to start?
Sure. So we haven't used it to that extent yet. But I can say that, there are absolutely those opportunities with, specifically with curriculum guiding and lesson planning and task management. So it's really quite easy to be able to build it as you see fit. And I think that's what many of the systems are really responding to is the culture of a school. So what do you need to do and how can it best happen? So within, building out tasks or building out, checklist items, you can be pushing out, a survey. You can be pushing out, an assignment. You can be pushing out information, and students can complete, on different timelines and store information there as well. So if you build it, it's possible. Absolutely.
And I'm not 100% sure about Score. I know one thing is that Score starts in 9th grade. So I know that Naviance has the capability of putting kindergartners in there all the way through. And Score, I don't believe does. I think you really only start in 9th grade. So if there are tasks that you need to track prior to 9th grade, it might not be the right system, although I think it's really worth asking them. And one of the things that I think the three of us were really clear about was that none of us are company representatives. None of us know everything about the system that we're using. And that all of these systems are happy to do demonstrations for you and answer a million questions. And I think it's really a good idea to do all that, especially because everyone's needs are a little bit different. And so I would encourage you to reach out. Also, the experience that you have on that reach out end is going to tell you a little something about how it's going to go for you from then on. So pay attention to that too.
Yeah, I think most of the systems that we were looking at do a nice job of allowing students to collect artifacts. So, I see Scott mentioned about SCORE through 9th has been useful. Michelle mentioned Maya Learning 6 through 12. They've been collecting 339 artifacts. CALPHO has been great. We have students log their extracurricular activities, and it's actually in the same format that you'll see on the Common App, which has been really helpful. So that makes a seamless transition as students are moving that information over. We use questionnaires that we have students fill out. There is mindfulness curricula as well, career exploration curricula. So there are a number of curriculum platforms, I think, in each of these systems, similar to what Naviance has, that will allow schools to keep track of all of their Chapter 339 artifacts. And with that, so we'll jump into just how the transition has gone for each of our institutions so far, what we've learned, and what advice we'd give along the way. Katie, I do see the question for SCORE. Have you found it difficult to send documents that are not to schools that are not on SCORE yet? So I know Stacy will be touching upon that when she talks about the Crefeld School's transition to SCORE. But Kelly, would you mind kicking us off with how Maya Learning and the transition has gone for you at St. Joe's Prep?
There we go. Sorry about that. Got some background noise here. So yes, transition-wise, it's been perfectly smooth. And I think any recommendations that I share are just personal. What worked for us, what worked for our culture. So it's definitely great to have conversations with the Maya people. And the transition, I would say, definitely allow yourself time. Allow yourself time to build it out. Allow yourself time to introduce your school community to it, not only your students, but parents and teachers. And it's a matter of changing the language, because I think for so many years, we were so used to the buzzword of Naviance. So how do we build that into the culture? We onboarded our seniors, or rising senior class, I should say, this year. So kicking them off in junior year with it and keeping them on one system all the way through is our goal. And our goal was to transition the class of 2020 through Naviance and off Naviance. So we didn't want to switch kids halfway through the process. We wanted them to just live that out. That's also really important for Common App and Parchment integration, specifically with the integration piece that, once you map a student and connect a student from their Common App to a system, you don't want to switch it halfway through the year. In fact, I don't think you can, according to the Common App people. So that you want to make sure a student lives through the life cycle of one system. Other things that I really loved about the transition process, and maybe it's just part of my millennial identity, I love the fact that Maya was so helpful and so hands-on with us, but I even loved more the self-service, right? Because that's the generation that I'm in. And their support system and their support platform was incredible with how-to guides and videos. And, I can put a ticket in. And that is something I just loved as that millennial group. I didn't want to bother people constantly when I could watch a video. So maybe it's just from my perspective there, but that was incredibly helpful, that I could onboard myself at my own pace. So, we all work with different individuals and different stakeholders, and those videos are just incredible learning tools along the way. And the last piece I'd say is be comfortable building the plane while you're flying it. It's going to happen that way. You can't have everything ready for day one of turn on. A slow build is important. A slow process, a reflective process is probably even more important, to sit down with your team and say, what do we want to get accomplished here? What are our key goals? What is an experience for our kids? And I think if you can have that collaborative moment to reset, it will allow you to build a system out that responds to where you are now as opposed to where you are 10 years ago, or where a system wants you to be. And I think Naviance had a way of doing it. Like Stacy said, this allowed us to rethink that process.
That's great. I am 53, so I am not a millennial. And while SCORE has tremendous videos and libraries and everything else, I really appreciate a phone call sometimes. But yes, I think all of that is good. I will say too, for us, in the transition, we did a similar thing, Kelly. We, in our last year of our contract with Naviance is when we onboarded SCORE. So we were running, our juniors were on SCORE, but our seniors were on Naviance because they had started on Naviance as juniors. And so we wanted to continue with them. And that also gave us a year to kind of figure out what it was going to look like when we actually were doing more process with SCORE. So that was really a helpful way of doing it. And I've heard a lot of schools do that as well. So I think that's probably a best practice. And then as far as the transition went, it really was very easy. You know, there's a process for downloading all of your historical data out of your old system and uploading it into your new system. So all of that information transfers along with the scattergrams and everything else. It's all there. So that was easy. I would say we can all take a lesson from Van Halen. Go ahead and jump, right? This is like, it's scary. There is that thing of like, we've always done it this way. And I think a lot of people are concerned that their parents are not going to adapt or not going to be happy or whatever. We are, as humans, we tend to not like change that much as a rule, but we also are incredibly adaptable. And so, you know, for the first, I will say the kids for us right away, in my first, when I used to do that, I used to do this big group presentation where I would introduce Naviance and I would take them through and, you know, do all the clicks and show them where everything was, and they were bored and it was whatever. And I did the same thing with SCORE that first year. And within like 30 seconds, they were like, shh, stop talking, we're doing it. And they just were doing, like, it's just so much more of an intuitive system for them that it was really great. So the kids really liked it. The parents, it took them a little while, especially because some of them had older children who had used Naviance before, or, you know, or kids in other schools. And they were like, why are you leaving Naviance? All we ever hear about is Naviance. And at the time, I think SCORE was super new, and it was, and Maya didn't exist yet, and Cialfo didn't exist yet. And so there wasn't that sense that there were multiple platforms, but they all figured it out and it was fine. To answer Katie's question about what do you do? So SCORE's not integrated with Common App yet. I don't know. I think they've been in talks, but I don't know whether there will be an integration or not. SCORE is integrated with Slate, which was a tremendous number of colleges came on board. So we saw in my very first year with SCORE, which is I think 4 years ago, you know, there were a lot of schools that weren't accepting documents through SCORE's platform, and I had to deal with that. At the time, it was fine. It was free. I was like, I'll put up with that. And then they integrated with Slate, and so tons and tons of colleges got on board. So now it's very rare when I have a school that won't accept documents through SCORE. And pretty much what I do is I reach out to admissions and say, how do you want these documents? And they 9 times out of 10 say, just email them. And I email them and they say, thanks, I've added them to the file, and it's all good. And it actually gives me another touch point to talk to that admissions rep and say, oh, and by the way, and you know, you should come visit us, because it's usually a school that I'm not familiar with when that happens. So that has not really been a problem for us. And like I said, it's fewer and fewer each year.
So we made the transition this year, and I would certainly suggest starting your new system with a new class. So we started C-Alpha rollout with our juniors in January. Our seniors we saw through with Naviance. So for us as counselors, we were working between the two different systems. But for students, the senior class was using Naviance, the junior class was using C-Alpha. I think transition of data is an extremely important consideration, and C-Alpha has been great with that. My understanding is that other systems, and that goes back to that customer service piece, other platforms do a great job of helping you move your data from your prior system to your new system. One of the concerns that we had with our contract with Naviance expiring at the end of June, we wanted to make sure that we would be able to, one, send final transcripts for our seniors through Naviance to all of the schools. Like, we had to give them that 30-day notice of that we wouldn't be renewing the contract. And we basically wanted to make sure they wouldn't pull the rug out from under us. And they didn't. They were great about it. They're letting us see things through. But there's also that idea of data collection. So I think we've set at about the last 10 years, all of those records on Naviance, things like letters of recommendation, documents that we've uploaded, we're just going to store those onto a Google Drive. But you want to make sure you have kind of a contingency plan when you're rolling from one system to the next. So yes, both I think customer service offices are going to help you with that transition and movement of data and reporting. But all of those hard documents that you're uploading into different systems, make sure you have a plan in place for storing those if you need them. Because we're thinking, what if a student going into, for us, his junior year of college and needs a letter of recommendation or a transcript or some other form, we don't want to lose that information. So we want to make sure we upload that. We started with students, and it's been very seamless. The juniors seem to really be adapting well, working with C-Alpha. For them, it's the only system they know. We gave them some initial exposure as sophomores to Naviance, but we don't do a whole lot with it until that junior year. So, it's been a pretty smooth transition. Students have liked the platform. We have not had a chance to roll it out with teachers and parents yet. So that was on the docket right as we were shutting down. So right around mid-March, we were working on the final stages of setting up parent platform and teacher platform for uploading letters. So we're having our teachers just use Google Suites, Google Docs, and Drive to upload their letters of recommendation. And then we'll upload everything to C-Alpha when we hopefully return in the fall, but at least we'll be set up remotely to do that. In terms of parents, right now we're just asking parents to utilize, we use it as kind of a positive thing, encouragement, like, hey, sit down with your son and go over the system with him, because we don't have the parent usability set up yet. Again, we were in the final stages, and we said, you know what, we'll just hold on that. So that's something we're going to be working on this summer and rolling out in the fall, whether it's virtual or whether we're back on campus. So I think just setting up a timeline is really important for that transition. Yes, Kelly very much alluded, and I'm seeing a lot of this in the chat too, these support networks and these systems. So something like a Facebook group. I know C-Alpha has a group of counselors. It's very much an international platform, but we're having counselors with an email exchange. And Catherine Souza down at Archmere, who is a big active member of PACAC as well, she's been great in terms of spearheading these email threads and these listservs around support. So whatever you can do to connect with colleagues who are also going through the transition. And that was part of our hope of this session too, building that network, understanding who's making that jump. And as you're seeing any snags or having questions, reach out to your colleagues, take advantage of that network. I think that's a very important step of the transition, because you can learn a lot that way. And sometimes it's those DK, I don't know what I don't know, but you start seeing things and topics pop up on these threads, and it unlocks more capability that you might not have even been aware of. So that's a very helpful system.
One note I'll add there in terms of advice that I don't think I saw coming was your students and your parents are pretty tech savvy and pretty aware consumers. So they're going to be thinking probably more about data protection than we were 5 years ago, even 10 years ago. So be ready for that conversation too. Think about GDPR standards and regulations. Think about who owns the data. Think about how you access the data, one-click sign-ons, that kind of stuff and protection. I didn't expect to get the questions, but they surely came out more so than I ever realized.
One question I'm seeing in the chat from Beth would be, do you see any potential pros and cons of any of these systems for a much larger school district? So again, we're all coming from smaller schools. So I think St. Joe's Prep has about, 250 or so in a graduating class. Malvern has about 120. I think Crefeld has about 20 in a graduating class. So Kelly and Stacy, what are your insights as far as like how these systems might transition over for a school with 400 seniors or more in a class in terms of document sending, organizing lists and things like that?
Yeah, and I think there's some answers in the chat as well, both about Maya and SCORE. And I'm not sure about CALFO, but I know SCORE has contracted with some pretty large public school districts. I cannot remember which ones now but I remember Jerry telling me that. So I think that, and I know Maya has as well. And I don't know about CALFO. I think CALFO started like internationally, but was working and had, so I think that I think all of these systems are built not for a class of 20 like I mean, for any system that I'm going to use, I'm using like this much of a very robust system because I have 20 seniors. So, but I think they're all designed to be used by large schools with huge graduating classes, and it makes it very easy. And I will also just say, in terms of data protection and student privacy, SCORE is very, very clear that, again, started by a parent, and he was horrified when he found out that College Board was selling his child's information to places. And he was really, really upset about it. And I think one of the things that he's incredibly committed to student privacy. So there are ways for colleges to know that a student has looked at their profile, but only if the student opts in to that option, right? So the default is that a college would never see anything, and then a student can decide if they want a college to communicate with them that way.
Yeah, I have no worries about Maya being able to handle a large school district. I think it is out there. California, I see the chat in Denver public schools, so it is absolutely scaled for large as well as small, and everything in between. I think my favorite part about Maya, when you really get in there, is some of the settings. The ability to turn things on and off at different times and customize. And you can customize for your culture, you can customize for your size, you can customize for your school. So it really is more about the institution and the district looking at it and saying, what do we want to do and how do we want to handle this? But it's ready and available for all sizes.
Yeah, CALFO, again, we haven't had a chance to send documents yet. That'll be coming this fall. However, we did our due diligence, had a lot of conversation around that because that was something that was going to be really important for us. And we are very confident that document sending is going to be easy through CALFO. Another concern, that I think has been alleviated, CALFO has this task list feature that allows you to assign certain tasks of students and basically track their progress. And I think if you have a large caseload, that can be a really helpful feature in the platform to basically see on one screen who's completed what and where are certain students in the process. So I would recommend checking that out as well.
Yeah, and I would say too, check out the dashboard of whatever system that you're using. What is on that landing page? What are you seeing? Because it's so important. And one of the things that we really liked about SCORE was that you could see whatever was that needs your attention is like right there in front of you. You know, this kid needs a transcript sent. This letter of recommendation just came in. Like, there's a lot of functionality there, which is really important. And I think the dashboard is one of those things that could be a real decision maker for you, because you need, you know, as a counselor, you need to be able to see what you want to see.
I would suggest the same thing about reporting abilities.
Yes.
That's vital. And if you're not looking at that as part of the process, you will be disappointed later if you didn't really dive into that.
Right. And flexible reporting. It just feels like in this day and age, you should be able to report on you should be able to run a report on basically any field in a system. Like, why couldn't you do that? You know? So I think that all of these systems that have been programmed now, as opposed to 25 years ago, are just much more flexible in terms of what they can do, both in terms of the reporting and in terms of, everything.
I'd like to open up the floor. If anyone feels comfortable and wants to share experiences they've had in transitions or any additional questions they might have, if you want to use the hand raise feature, we can certainly unmute, or if you want to share in the chat that you have any experiences that you'd like to share with the group. Is there anyone who would like to talk about their experiences? Well, certainly the chat has been very active with questions, and we do appreciate that. Kelly, Stacy, any other thoughts, parting words?
For me, I would just say, do the shopping, connect with the people, make sure you do all the demos, and really set up a individual session to go about that. And I will do a shout out to Michelle in here. She's a member of the Maya team and has been fantastic in answering a lot of the questions in the chat that maybe I couldn't answer. So thank you, Michelle. And just on a lighter note, I got stopped in my tracks a couple of weeks ago when I was having a conversation with a parent and a student, and I was saying, we're moving to Maya. This is great. You're going to be so excited. It's going to be so flexible. Not realizing I was talking to a mom whose dad started Naviance. So just, mind your manners. And you never know. We're at that generation. So, but even she was like, "This looks great." So we've got some good backing.
Naviance was originally started by a parent as well, and has come a long way. Like I don't think, when Hobson's bought it, it really changed a lot. So
yeah, she said in her freshman year at Holy Cross, her dad started it, and at Thanksgiving they were naming it with Post-its. So it was a great, fun story of down memory lane. But just you never know your audience.
True enough.
Well, Kelly and Stacey, thank you so much for joining this discussion. And if you wouldn't mind, please drop your email addresses in the chat so that folks can reach out if they have additional questions. We are hitting right up against that 2:45 time, so feel free to grab a quick break for our closing session in 15 minutes. So at 3 p.m., again, you can reach that main room from the conference landing page. I'm happy to stick around. If anyone has additional questions or wants to talk further about any of the platforms or just questions in general. But yeah, hopefully you'll take some time to reach out if you have questions, but definitely utilize your colleagues in this profession at different schools and the insights that can be shared. I think that's really helpful information when making a decision to switch. But yeah, like Stacey alluded to, don't be afraid. Take the jump. I think you'll find it well worth it. And I want to go back to Kelly's point of culture too. Culture is really important. So just do your due diligence. Make sure you're considering all the components of culture that would make a good fit for your institution. And good luck. If that transition is in.
Thanks, everybody.
Great job, friends.
Hey, thanks, Liz.
Liz.
I'm trying to get we have one more year left in Navient, so Jane's just a little nervous. And I'm
Go.
pushing her along, but we're getting there. So
Keep nudging, Liz. Keep nudging.
I
Kelly,
know.
it was really helpful to hear from you because Mike, our new director, who kind of spearheaded the shift, we were shifting away regardless, but he was the one who made the decision for Maya. It's his first director position. He's been really nervous, and hearing from somebody else, and I know Satish and Michelle having them on, to me, I feel like that just reaffirms.
Oh, please reach out if you have any questions. I am like still figuring it all out, but
Absolutely.
Please,
well,
happy to.
Mike, and I was like, I'm going to call Kelly at some point and just.
No, please do. Yeah, please do. And I would love to collaborate more because, you know, we all see problems in different ways, and it's all of a sudden you need someone else using a system to like, oh, I never thought of that, you know?
Exactly.
So let's definitely work together.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
See you later.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
Aaron Jones, you still here? He's coming to us all the way from the American School of Doha.
I'm here. What's good?
Oh, man.
How are you guys doing? You guys did a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
What time is it there?
It's 9:45.
Okay, not bad.
Not bad.
Long day for you, but
yeah. I want to get in your ear too, Kelly, about Maya.
Okay,
So
please
I want to
do.
know what you think about especially about the end of year reports and all of that sort of jazz.
Yeah,
So
let's do a session.
Kelly is a reporting whiz, so you know she only chose a
I know Kelly very well.
You would be amazed at the predictive modeling I've been doing. So come on down.
Say the same thing. I want to show you what I've been working on as well.
Okay, you're going to be on my doctoral dissertation, my friend. Get yourself ready.
All right, I'm ready.
All right,
All
I'll
right.
see ya.
Yeah.
I'm just so happy that there's more than one platform now. Like,
isn't it the best?
right?
I love the competition out there. I love the culture of like find what works for you as opposed to there's a monopoly.
And honestly,
so
my biggest fear is that any one of these is going to sell. Like, right? Like, I just feel like that's my biggest, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of these three will, but it's just, you know, that's like, I was so sad when Rep Visit sold to Hobson. I was like, oh.
I was too. But if you were that person, wouldn't you?
Yeah, no,